They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes it takes 23 years to get the temperature just right. My name is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, retired. And this is the story of how an arrogant lieutenant colonel named Marcus Webb tried to destroy my career in 1987 ... and how I made sure he paid for it in 2010. Fort Braxton, North Carolina, 1987. The Cold War rages. Military bases are fortresses of testosterone. Captain Sarah Mitchell is one of only 12 female officers in a regiment of 800 men. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb is her commanding officer, a man who believes women belong in kitchens, not combat zones. Sarah's rapid rise commendations, record promotions. Respect from the troops makes her a threat to Webb's old boys club. She isn't just good, she's exceptional. She can outshoot, outthink, and outlead most of the officers around her. And that's a problem for a man like Webb. The first sign of trouble comes during a routine supply audit. Sarah discovers missing night vision goggles, ammunition that exists only on paper, and fuel allocations that don't match consumption. She reports it to Webb. Captain Mitchell. Webb says, steepling his fingers, "You seem to have made so many errors in your calculations. Sir, I've triple-checked these numbers. We're missing approximately $200,000 worth of equipment and supplies. Are you suggesting there's theft on my base, Captain?" "I'm suggesting there are discrepancies that require investigation, sir." Webb threatens her promotion, her reputation, her future. He wants her to file a false report. She refuses. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your military career." He warns. Sarah knows she's walking into a storm, but she doesn't back down. Her integrity means more than her rank. Within a week, Sarah's life becomes a living hell. Her parking spot is reassigned. Her office is moved to the basement next to a leaking boiler. Her requests for personnel are denied. Files go missing. She's locked out of key systems. She's called into Webb's office and forced to answer fabricated complaints of insubordination and creating a hostile work environment for male colleagues. Webb paints her as emotional, uncooperative, and difficult to manage. She's transferred to inventory management, a dead-end assignment surrounded by moldy records and broken furniture. But Sarah is resilient. She starts documenting everything, every order, every suspicious activity, every conversation. She learns to play the long game. She builds a network of allies, marginalized officers, enlisted personnel, civilian contractors, people who've been burned by Webb or who are tired of watching good soldiers get crushed. One of them, a quiet data analyst named Kim Tran, tips her off to a hidden database. There, Sarah discovers that the missing equipment is part of a systematic scheme. Webb and his aide, Captain Morrison, are selling supplies to private contractors and covering their tracks with falsified paperwork. Her new assignment gives her access to historical supply data. She uncovers a gold mine, a 3-year scheme worth over $2 million. But she needs more than accusations. She needs ironclad proof. Tran helps her back up the data, encrypt it, and send it to trusted allies. Webb, meanwhile, ramps up the pressure. He blocks her promotion, smears her reputation, and files for her discharge, citing chronic insubordination. Colonel Patricia Hayes, a senior officer, offers Sarah a lifeline, a transfer to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with a chance to rebuild her career. Sarah negotiates for 2 weeks to finish her audit. She works 18-hour days compiling a comprehensive dossier of Webb's corruption. She makes multiple copies, sending them to trusted contacts as insurance. Then she waits. At Fort Campbell, Sarah starts over. Over 15 years, she rises. Major, then lieutenant colonel, then colonel. She serves 2 tours in Iraq, revolutionizes supply chain management, and becomes a respected voice in military logistics. Her Bronze Star and Legion of Merit are hard-won, the product of decades of precision and perseverance. All the while, she keeps tabs on Webb. Webb's career soars, promoted to colonel, then brigadier general, then a Pentagon staff officer overseeing defense contracts worth billions. His corruption grows more sophisticated, with contracts steered to favored companies in exchange for kickbacks laundered through shell companies. He becomes untouchable and he overreaches. In 2010, Webb is selected to testify before a congressional subcommittee on defense procurement. Sarah, now a renowned logistics expert, is also invited to testify. Webb is shocked to see her on the witness list. Colonel Mitchell, he says, extending his hand. What a pleasant surprise. General Webb, congratulations on your promotion. I've been following your career with great interest. Webb testifies in the morning, painting himself as a reformer. Sarah testifies in the afternoon. She outlines the need for transparency and accountability, then drops the bombshell. She describes the 1987 audit, the retaliation, and the documentation she preserved, now part of an ongoing Inspector General investigation. She doesn't just accuse Webb, she proves a pattern. Screenshots of encrypted files, timestamped memos, recorded statements. Years of data, now corroborated by other whistleblowers. Webb flees the hearing room. By the next morning, news outlets are reporting on Sarah's testimony. Webb is suspended pending investigation. His public image implodes. The Inspector General's investigation is relentless. Sarah's documentation, meticulously kept for over 2 decades, proves invaluable. Witnesses come forward. Officers, contractors, even former subordinates of Webb who were complicit or coerced. Webb's shell companies are traced, offshore accounts scrutinized. The scale of his corruption is staggering. Millions of dollars in military supplies and contracts siphoned off over 2 decades. One of his shell companies is linked to a no-bid contract in Afghanistan that resulted in faulty equipment being delivered to frontline troops. Congressional leaders demand a full audit of his entire career. Meanwhile, Sarah begins mentoring younger officers who faced retaliation for whistleblowing. She becomes a silent but powerful force for accountability inside the Pentagon. She is called back to Washington for follow-up testimony. She faces Webb in a closed-door session. "You destroyed my career for telling the truth," she says. "Now the truth is destroying you." Webb tries to bluster, but the room is silent. The weight of evidence is undeniable. He's stripped of his rank, pension, and honors. He faces federal charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The Pentagon launches sweeping reforms, many based on Sarah's recommendations. Sarah retires with honor. She receives a personal commendation from the Secretary of Defense. Her story becomes a case study in military ethics courses. She writes a book, The Cost of Silence, which becomes a bestseller. She speaks at academies, universities, and leadership forums. Young officers, especially women, cite her as inspiration. In a surprising twist, Kim Tran, now a cybersecurity specialist for the Department of Defense, is appointed to lead a new task force on procurement transparency. Legacy of Sarah's R.S. Long fight. Webb's legacy is one of disgrace. His name is erased from the halls of power. His commendations are revoked. His photograph is quietly removed from the Pentagon's wall of generals. Sarah's is etched in the annals of military history. News of Webb's downfall dominates headlines for weeks. Sarah becomes the center of a media storm. Some journalists portray her as a whistleblower hero. Others try to dig up dirt from her past. She handles it with grace, using interviews to highlight the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of ethics in military leadership. She's invited to brief NATO on procurement integrity. While overseas, she meets other officers who share their own battles with corruption. Sarah realizes her fight isn't unique, it's part of a global issue. She begins consulting internationally, helping allied forces implement auditing reforms. Meanwhile, former Captain Morrison, Webb's accomplice, cuts a deal with federal prosecutors. He provides details on additional contracts Webb manipulated. and admits to falsifying safety certifications for equipment sent to combat zones. His testimony leads to a second wave of arrests. Sarah's victory isn't without sacrifice. Her personal life was placed on hold for decades. She never married, never had children. She reflects on what she gave up and what she gained. She reconnects with an old flame, Colonel James Pierce, a former classmate from West Point, now a widower and military history professor. Their reunion starts awkwardly, but evolves into something genuine. James, a reserved yet kind man, reminds Sarah that her legacy isn't just professional. She begins to let her guard down for the first time in years. She also revisits Fort Braxton. It's changed, but memories linger. She meets young officers who thank her for blazing a trail. One captain tells her, "We have doors open now because you refuse to back down." The Department of Defense launches the Mitchell Doctrine, a set of reforms requiring real-time inventory tracking, third-party audits, and whistleblower protection. Sarah is appointed chair of the Civilian Oversight Board, a film adaptation of Her Life Begins production. Sarah is hesitant but agrees, hoping it will inspire future generations. She works closely with the screenwriter to ensure accuracy, even revisiting her journals from the 1980s. Kim. Trans Task Force uncovers systemic issues across multiple military branches. With Sarah's mentorship, Kim becomes a prominent figure. In defense reform, eventually nominated as Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition. In 2012, Sarah receives an anonymous tip. Webb, out on bail, has been attempting to launder money through a new business venture registered under his daughter's name. Sarah tips off the FBI. In a final dramatic sting operation, Webb is caught red-handed at a luxury resort, attempting to broker a deal with a foreign contractor. Cameras capture the arrest. It makes national news. Sarah doesn't gloat. Instead, she holds a press conference urging continued vigilance in leadership and accountability. Her words resonate. Corruption doesn't die, it hides. And sometimes it waits. That's why we never stop watching. Sarah is honored at Arlington with a full military ceremony. Not for her death, but for her service. The Secretary of Defense announces a scholarship in her name for young officers pursuing ethics and leadership studies. Her book becomes part of military academy curriculums. A memorial is erected at Fort Campbell, a bronze statue of Sarah looking outward, a dossier clutched in one hand. A pair of combat boots beside her. She visits it one quiet evening with James. They sit in silence as the sun sets. "Do you ever regret it?" he asks. Sarah doesn't answer immediately. Then, not for a second. Some fights are worth every scar.